we thought that the application by drone would be very interesting in this regard, because one, it removes the need to actually go in with the spray, which may cause some mechanical damage. And actually, the application that you get from a drone is very different from a spray. You have a much tighter droplet spectrum, and the rotary blades on the drone as well actually do help to really push the spray down into the crop canopy and target those lower pods, which we're aiming for.
That was Rob Suckling from Sangosse discussing how an aerial application of a pod sealant has been carried out by drone. Rob joins us today alongside another Rob Pearson from AutoSpray Systems, as we look at what the future might be like for aerial applied crop protection products in arable farming. I'm your host for today, Ben Pike, as we celebrate the 50th episode of Inside the Pod from the Processors and Growers Research Organisation. If you've been with us from the start, thanks very much for listening, and if this is your first time listening, we hope you enjoy the show. So we've got a couple of guests today for our 50th episode special. Rather than looking back for 50 episodes, we're looking very much forwards into the future of bean production and some of the applications of sprays and how they're going to be put on in the future. So that's quite an interesting area. And for that, I'm joined by Rob Suckling from Sangosse. Good afternoon, Rob.
Hello, Ben. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And in the other corner, we've got Rob Pearson from AutoSpray Systems. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Hello, Ben. Very excited to be here.
So we'll go straight into it. The reason that we're convening today is to talk about a rather exciting area of pod sealant application, which over the last few years has been developing through the use of Rob's drone applications. But the product that has been applied most recently on spraying videos that we saw was from Sangosse, their Pod-Stik applications. So Rob Suckling's joined us to talk a little bit about Sangosse and how that product works. So Rob, for those who aren't familiar with Sangosse, the company, do you want to perhaps give us a bit of an intro into who you are and more specifically what you do in the UK pulses space, some of the products that growers might be familiar with?
Sure. Okay, so I'll just start with a bit of a background around Sangosse, because a lot of growers won't know us as a business. Some of our product trademarks are recognised much better. But we are an agrochemical manufacturer, and we specialise in adjuvant technologies, water conditioners, foliar nutrients. We're a very big supplier of molluscicides as well. And of course, pod sealants, which is something that we're very well known for, and what we're here to talk about today. Pod-Stik is our trademark. It's a product that we launched some 20 years ago now in the UK market. Firstly into oilseed rape, but then we did pick up a market as well for application to peas and beans. Some of our other trademarks that will be very well known are things like Exchange, a water conditioning product for the correction of hard water, and also some adjuvants like Activator 90 as well. And all those aforementioned products do actually have uses in beans as well.
And why is Pod-Stik important? I mean, obviously, growers are concerned about losing yield in the run-up to harvest and during harvest. But what is it that Pod-Stik does?
So Pod-Stik protects yield of podding crops by sealing the pod shut for longer to prevent the premature release of seed before the combine gets in the field. And as a result, we're able to capture more seed in the combine and protect yield.
And is it quite commonly used? I've heard about it widely used in oilseed rape crops. Is it a relatively new product for pulses, or has it been around for some time in this sector?
No, it's been around for some time in this sector. As I mentioned, I mean, we first launched Pod-Stik as a company around 20 years ago now. Yes, most of the use has been in oilseed rape over these years, but it has been used in pea and bean crops for quite a long time.
And what sort of timing are we applying Pod-Stik from and until? When do growers see the greatest benefit?
In beans, typically growth stage 85 to 89, and that's 50% pods ripened to 90% pods ripen. It's very important that you do have a fully formed pod before you apply the pod sealant. You don't want to apply it to a pod that's already expanding, otherwise the seals that are created over the pod seam will be broken as the pod grows. So we recommend applications from 50% pods ripe. Typically the crop is ripening from the bottom upwards. The earliest maturing pods are your target because those are the ones that are exposed for the longest. So you want to aim for those pods in the lower half of the canopy. So from 50% pods ripe right up to 90%.
Probably a good time to bring in the other Rob who's joining us this afternoon, Rob. And you'll know a lot of this stuff, of course, already. But when did you first become interested in the role of drones to help get the product, I guess, where it needs to be into the target of the crop?
It was early summer 2025 last year. We had a phone call with Rob and his team, and they suggested that they'd like to try Pod-Stik through the drones. It was a new product to me, and my role at AutoSpray is in developing new applications for drone technology in the agricultural market. So, of course, we were very happy to help.
And why was it that Sangosse decided to try it with the drone, Rob? Is this something you'd sort of seen and thought that would work well with this product, or was there another reason that you came about trying to do it through a drone rather than a conventional sprayer?
Well, we like to think of ourselves as an innovative business. Over the years, we've created lots of new products and opened up lots of new markets, and pod sealants has been one of those. We're aware of the emerging use of drones in applications of sprays to different crops, and we felt that there'd be a good opportunity to apply Pod-Stik. One of the barriers to use over the years, not so much now, but it has been that growers are concerned when they go in with their sprayer to apply the product at 50 to 90% pods ripe that they may cause a certain amount of pod shatter going through the crop. Our trials over the years have showed that any loss that would occur in the tramlines is dramatically outweighed by the benefit for protection across the wider field. But we thought that the application by drone would be very interesting in this regard, because one, it removes the need to actually go in with the sprayer, which may cause some mechanical damage. And actually, the application that you get from a drone is very different from a spray. You have a much tighter droplet spectrum, and the rotary blades on the drone as well actually do help to really push the spray down into the crop canopy and target those lower pods, which we're aiming for.
So is this where drones are a more kind of efficient and for certain applications then, Rob? Is this what you're finding with other businesses that you're working with, is that a different type of application is where there's a real opportunity here?
Absolutely. What the drones don't do and won't do is replace the big 36-metre self-propel that many farmers use. This is a piece of equipment that, from a spray contractor's perspective, is just another tool in the spray shed. And they get used when access is difficult or when damage to the crop needs to be avoided. And of course, the application method is slightly different. Think about the drone. You've got your spray coming out underneath the drone, but you've got 4 huge fans blowing that downwards. So when Rob mentioned that he was trying to get good coverage low down, right down the stems of the beans to those lower pods, this was the obvious solution.
So you should perhaps take a step back for people who've never seen the videos online of drones applying spray, or I think I've seen demonstrations at various shows where it's happened. But just talk us through actually how you apply through a drone, Rob. What does it look like? What's your sort of your tank capacity like,
Sure.
and also what are the sort of properties that you're trying to achieve when you're going through a crop?
The properties we're trying to achieve are very similar to a conventional sprayer. They're looking to protect or fertilise or enhance their crop in some way. And what we want to do this is with the minimal damage, but also the beauty of these drones. I'll explain what the drones look like and what the process is before I come on to how it sort of impacts these things. Yeah, so I'll explain what the drones look like. I mean, these things are huge. They're 3 meters across. They have a 50 or 60 litre tank. But although these drones are huge, and farmers always say, "Oh, that's a big drone," but it's much smaller than my big 5,000, 10,000 litre self-propelled sprayer, and they are. But we're not trying to replace those sprayers. What we're trying to do is augment those. Because we don't have to travel on those tram lines through the crop, we can go where we're needed. So the drones are great at delivering spray product, be it Pod-Stik or any other active, to areas that it's needed rather than just blanket spraying.
And what are the limitations in terms of how much you can do with a drone? I know we've spoken off air about some of the licensing for products. I think our listeners will probably be interested to know when drones are going to become more mainstream. We're going to see more of them, and perhaps what might have held them back in that sort of respect so far. So where are we with that?
Well, we were at the HSE, Health and Safety Executive, and the Chemical Regulatory Department yesterday for a big meeting. Things are moving along really very quickly behind the scenes. And I say behind the scenes because the approvals aren't actually here yet, but we've been working for the last 4 years to produce the spray drift data that is required to enable the broader spectrum of plant protection products to be authorised. Now, of course, Pod-Stik does not have a MAP number, it's not a registered pesticide, so we can use that freely along with thousands of other products, all the fertilizers, growth stimulants, etc. we can use fine. But of course, farmers do want to use their traditional plant protection products on which they often rely for productivity. So those authorizations are in the pipeline. There's no one standing in the way of these authorizations. The government's on board, DEFRA's on board, even the Health and Safety Executive are working through this data very diligently. There's no corners being cut here, but what is happening is those authorizations will arrive. We can't quite predict the timing on these. We're all hoping that this will be sooner rather than later, but in the very near future, you will start to see drones used as business as usual on farms right across the country.
I think that's really, really interesting and fascinating to know that that's hopefully just around the corner, and we'll see much more of that going forward. Rob, coming back to Sangosse and the applications of Pod-Stik, I'm interested in how big a problem pod shatter is to UK growers. Is it something that we perhaps underestimate as growers in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. The pod shatter is ultimately a natural mechanism. In nature, podding plants like this would disperse their seed this way. So it's a natural process, but one that we want to control. I think, we can think of products like Pod-Stik as being routinely applied, of course, for this reason, but I think they're especially helpful as well as an insurance policy in the event of any delayed harvest or adverse weather conditions in that run up to harvest. I mean, beans are, they're normally harvested at the back end of the combinable crop harvest after all the wheat's in the barn. And, if we've had a tricky August getting the wheat in, and that's led to delays in getting the beans in, they can sit out there for a really long time. The longer that they're sat out there, exposed to the environment, the more likely that we're going to see pod shatter. So, I think it is a big problem. And my experience as well, I grew up on an arable farm on the Essex-Suffolk border. And when I used to do the combining, you often notice that a lot of the seed loss with beans it occurs as you're driving the combine through the field. The combine knife is cutting the bean stem, and that's causing the pods to shatter at that point. And the beans will hit the knife and they'll bounce off of the header onto the floor. And it's really heartbreaking, actually, in those situations. If you have a good crop of beans and you're losing so many right at that point of harvest, and what people who use Pod-Stik and beans notice is that extra rigidity that Pod-Stik gives to the bean pod just allows the combine knife to get in under those beans and ensure that they're all captured on the table. And this is where I think often a lot of the the good results and the yield benefit actually comes from.
Have you got a sort of measure of yield benefit from what you've seen in beans?
Yeah. I mean, it is directly related to yield potential of the crop. So the yield benefits in a better crop will be larger than in a poorer crop. But a successful application of Pod-Stik to beans is likely to increase yield by around 25%. So that could be, a ton a hectare easily.
Yeah, significant. Yeah. So, Rob, coming back to drone applications, how, given what Rob's just said about timing and that sort of the length of protection, if we use Pod-Stik again as a sort of example here, if numerous growers wanted to apply Pod-Stik on the same day, and you've got that usual battle of getting the contractor to turn up on the farm when you want them there, how does your business model operate? Because I understand you train drone operators as well as going through all of the processes with CRD that you described earlier. Just to explain how your model works and how you see drones becoming more applicable in this sense.
Absolutely, Ben. Well, the first thing to point out is we're not agricultural contractors. We're here to deal with what we see as the tricky part of the area where we're experts in, which is the civil aviation legislation, so the legislation surrounding getting flying safely, and then that side is well under control. The second part of that is what can you spray? So it's no good having an aircraft that can't actually apply anything useful to the farmer. Now, as it happens, it can. There's plenty of things, as I say, including Pod-Stik and many other fertilizer and growth stimulants. But for those plant protection products, our big focus at the moment is on working with the agri-chem manufacturers like the Sangosse to get their plant protection products authorized for drone application. And I'm glad to say we're making excellent progress on that front. And what will happen is, first you will see one or two plant protection products get authorized for drones. There'll be a granular product, there'll be a liquid product. But once one or two are authorized, the genie is genuinely out of the bottle, because if one or two are authorized, why not more and more and more? And what you will see is a trickle of these products turn into a flood, which will drive the uptake of drones by agricultural contractors up and down the country. And you asked about our business model. Well, our business model is enabling the market. We're there to get people legal and safe to fly, and the products legal and safe to apply. But then it is the people who have been trained by us, the pilots in the AutoSpray pilot network. And right now there's 50 of those pilots from the north of Scotland to the south coast. And they are ready for work at any time. So on the day when everyone wants to apply their Pod-Stik, hopefully it will be AutoSpray pilots that will be getting the phone call and turning up ready for duty.
And are those pilots, what is their day job? Are they flying drones every day in lots of different commercial scenarios, or what sort of typical business do they look like?
Broadly, they've fallen into three camps. There will be the conventional agricultural contractor who one day is on his 36-metre boom. However, the weather then turns nasty. He's not able to get into the fields with his big machine, so he then hands over to the drone for that wet access. Or alternatively, if he's looking for just patch or spot application, he can get on with that with his drone. So that's the agricultural contractor. Then you have the farmer whose day job is farming, but he has an interest in drones, wants to use the drones on his own farm, but also might do a little bit of casual contracting for his surrounding farms. And then there's a new category, which are the drone operators and drone contractors, but that's all they do. And they may be mapping one day, they might be doing line inspections for the power companies the next day, but they will be spraying as often as they can do. Because, of course, with, the wind's blowing at about 20, 30 miles an hour here. I'm not sure what it's like with you, Ben. So we wouldn't be spraying today. But you could be flying a small drone for mapping purposes, things like that.
And what about the drones themselves? Are people building them themselves, or are they shipping them in, or how are they getting hold of them? Because they are not. I don't know. Again, if people haven't seen these videos, they are not insignificant pieces of kit, are they?
No, people are not encouraged to build their own spray drones, Ben. I will warn them against that, because these once you get above 25 kilos with a drone, and these weigh 125 kilos when they take off, you enter a whole different set of legislation and restrictions. So no, these are mass-produced drones that are imported to the UK and have been thoroughly tested, that their safety systems are all appropriate, and that they have, these are 10th generation drones. They've been manufactured for the last 15 years. This isn't new technology. It's just the legislation and the ability to use them in the UK is new. That's the breakthrough that we've had in the last few years.
And Rob, Sangosse obviously interested in how this could help apply your particular product. But you grew up on an arable farm, as you said, and you're obviously heavily involved in all sorts of arable agriculture. What's your take on the role of drones going forward? And I guess you've seen how it can work, but what's your view on sort of adoption more widely when these barriers that Rob's just talked about have been overcome?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, as you pointed out, it's the regulatory barriers at the moment. Once we've overcome those, I think we'll start to see things move pretty quickly. Conventional sprayers are becoming incredibly expensive. They're expensive to buy, they're expensive to run, and getting them through the fields as well in wet conditions is a pain. The pictures that you can see on social media of sprayers getting stuck in a wet season, it's just an absolute nightmare. I'm certain that we're going to go in the direction of drone spraying, and I know in other parts of the world they're far more advanced than us. Rob Pearson will be able to tell you about that, where they progress much faster than us. But I honestly believe that one day it will be standard for a farmer to replace his sprayer with a fleet of drones, and weather conditions will be monitored and by the drones, and they will get up and they will spray in an automated way, and you will wake up as a farmer to a text message saying, "We sprayed this field at this time, the conditions were like this, and the application was successful." And it will become automated in that kind of way. I mean, it sounds it sounds absurd and totally futuristic, but I do believe that the technology is taking us in that direction, and this is how spraying is going to look in the years to come.
So I can hear sprayer manufacturers ringing my phone now saying, yes, but what about this? So I guess we've got to put some of that question to you, Rob, about, I guess, the technology that's available in conventional sprayers now. We see See and Spray, we see green on green, green on brown technology, that precision applications of spray droplets, particularly with things like fungicides or at very key growth stages where the droplet needs to get exactly where it is. When you see a drone operate, the first thing certainly I think about is how accurate is that spray droplet getting onto the plant. So that's the question, I suppose. There must be a limit to where a drone is perfect for certain circumstances and where a conventional sprayer is better at other things. Is there a sort of line, a tipping point there, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Look, at no point, and I appreciate Rob's optimism in the future about how these will become de facto machines on farms. I believe they will be, but they will not necessarily replace the big sprayers. Just to sort of illustrate that point, actually in Brazil, which is a big spray country, Case New Holland distribute the XAG spray drones because they are capable of covering huge areas. And in fact, they tested one drone ran for 24 hours, and they wanted to see how many hectares it could cover in 24 hours. I won't embarrass you on air, Ben, by asking you to have a guess, but it covered 985 hectares in 24 hours.
That's exactly what I would have said, so that's good.
Oh, well, there you go. So these drones are capable of covering huge areas. But another illustration, a farmer came onto one of our stands at the shows last year. He just travelled 28 kilometres up and down the tram lines in his 50-hectare field to treat patches of black grass that total 2 hectares. Well, for me, we can do that on one flight in 10 minutes on one set of batteries, treat those patches of black grass and be off the field. In fact, we've never touched the field, we've just flown above it. So that their advantages are they can travel more freely, there is no compaction, there is no potential for crop damage. However, they are not a per plant treatment product. A nozzle controlled sprayer will do a much more precise job of applying the product where it's needed if you are looking for that per plant treatment. The drone, I wouldn't call it a spot sprayer, I would call it a patch sprayer. If it produces a 3.5 meter wide patch of spray, so it is suitable for certain tasks. But again, this is why I see this as being complementary to the existing kit that's out there. And if I was one of the big spray manufacturers, I wouldn't be picking up my phone to Ben just now.
No, that's good to hear. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear that. So, Rob, I can't. While we've got you on, don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you a little bit about the Sangosse's view on sort of pulses more generally. We talk a lot on this podcast about the market demand for pulses and how confident companies who are involved in the supply chain are about the crop. Where do you stand on sort of the future for growing peas and beans in this country, and also sort of some of the agronomy around it? I guess one question we always ask is, do growers take crop protection in pulses as seriously as they do in a wheat crop? So I'm interested in your views on those.
Good questions, Ben. We have seen more beans being grown over the last few years, and I think this has a lot to do with the fact that oilseed rape has become trickier to grow. Oilseed rape has long been considered the best gross margin true break crop that you can put into a rotation, save any kind of specialist seeds and contracts that you have. But as we know, it's become so challenging to grow a really good crop of rape for many reasons. And beans have taken a certain portion of that market. I think spring cereals have taken a big portion of that hectarage as well. And beans they have been considered a low input crop and a crop that you put in. So you've got a good entry for a first wheat, and you get a good first wheat behind it. People haven't historically spent a lot on beans. I think, so the old adage, you only get out what you're willing to put in, and if you don't invest in the crop, you can't expect to get a lot out of it. But if we pay a little bit more attention to detail with beans, and we think just beyond the very basic herbicides that you're going to apply, fungicides for chocolate spot, protection against weevils, thinking beyond that to really well-targeted nutrition, use of pod sealants, and all these other great technologies that are available, then we can get more out of these crops, and they can pay much better as a break crop. There's fantastic information produced by PGRO, and they're an independent research organisation testing a lot of these solutions in an independent way. So I would encourage people to think about it, how they're growing the crop, how they view it, and really what they want to get out of it as a break crop as well.
Thanks. You've done my PGRO plug for me there, Rob, but thank you. Yeah, so all of that good advice on nutrition and agronomy is available on pgro.org. And Rob, just to finish with you as well, I guess I won't ask you a question directly about beans, but I'll ask you a question directly about drones. So Rob's given us his view on the future of what they look like. From your point of view, what does it look like in 5 years for your business and the use of drones? Where would you like to be?
Very simple. We would like to be in a position that the rest of the world is in, except Europe, to apply a broad range of plant protection products via drone, as and where it's appropriate. So the Pod-Stik onto the beans is a great illustration of how these drones can be very effective, very efficient, and also save the farmer money. But of course, the big breakthrough will come when the spectrum of what we can apply can be broadened, and we are looking very, very positive on that front. As I say, timing is not in our hands. If it was, it would be tomorrow. But it's coming soon, and there is a very exciting future ahead for the drone operators out there, and you will see hundreds more joining their ranks over the next year or two.
Really interesting. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rob, and explaining about AutoSpray Systems and what you've got to offer. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers, Ben.
And Rob, thank you for coming on and talking about Pod-Stik and Sangosse. It's been really interesting to hear what you guys have been up to, both with this drone application, but more broadly, some of your views on crop protection and where the market's going. So thanks for your time.
Oh, my pleasure, Ben. Thank you very much for having me on.
If you've heard something that you want to know a bit more about from today's episode, we'll include links to AutoSpray Systems and Sangosse in the show notes below your episode. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, then please leave us a 5-star review and a comment. It'd be great to have a positive response to our 50th episode. But until next time, thank you very much for listening. If you need any more information about growing peas and beans, you know to go to www.pgro.org, and we'll see you again soon.